Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome. This is a broadcast live from Dog Eared Books on Castro Street, 489 Castro Street. Our bookstore is open again after way too long being closed. We would love to see you come down and visit and buy some books. We're open every day from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And tonight we are pleased as punch to be inaugurating our Live from Dog Eared virtual reading series with a great friend of the store, Jim Provenzano, who's read here many times before and is a great favorite. He's going to be in conversation with another dog-eared favorite, Baruch Porras-Hernandez. And that's pretty much all I have to say, other than that if you would like to buy, in fact, not if, when you want to buy Jim's fabulous new book, Finding Tulsa, you can do so either in the store or we will be flashing a link so that you can buy it over the internet in the chat. So without further ado, here is Mr. Jim Provenzano.
Thank you, Baruch. And thanks to Wonder Dave for, I get to take this off now, for being our tech. He's our tech service tonight, and what would we do without tech people? It's really an amazing thing that we got this together in half an hour. My glasses. So, yeah, can you hide everybody else, and then me and Baruch will do things for a bit, and then we'll bring you all back later for comments and with. Go ahead, Baruch. Are you muted?
Hi, everybody. I don't know, don't know where you are out there in the world, but you are somewhere safe, and you are here to see this incredible, lovely event presented by Dog Eared Books. I know you're probably all muted, but at your homes, let's just give them a nice big round of applause for not only being our favorite Castro bookstore, being probably one of our all-time favorite bookstores. Remember when that was our only problem? Remember when our only worry was that bookstores would all disappear? Don't you just miss those times? Let's take a moment to be grateful that this bookstore is still around and that San Francisco hasn't sunk into the world. But that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss this incredible guy who has been writing for a long time. And if you live in San Francisco, you might have run into him and you might realize that he's also really damn sexy. I've never said that to his face, but I always think of him as, oh yeah, Jim, that talented guy that everybody has a secret crush on. Or maybe everybody just tells you, Jim, that they have a crush on you when they meet you. But I, for years, have kept it deep inside. And I've saved it till today to embarrass you in front of all of your friends. But no, we're also here to celebrate Finding Tulsa by Jim Provenzano, his new book that you're all going to buy tonight. And hopefully you will all buy it from Dog Eared Books. So before we start, if it's okay with you, Jim, I think we want to show a video of this lovely book, a promotional video. Is that what we're doing that first, right?
Taylor, yeah, I made it myself.
Great. All right. Let's watch this video. Wonder Dave, if you can highlight me, I can do the screen share.
So as you can see, that's
All
a trailer
right.
with the old cover.
Yay!
And the
Yay.
music was as a Stone Temple Pilots, and Peter Fogel did the guitar, and Kippy Marks did the violin, and we did that about 3 months ago in Kippy's basement. I just like making trailers for my books almost as much as writing them.
Wait, wow. So not only did you make that, but you also like had your friends put the music together.
Yeah, I've done it for the past 4 books because 3 of them had song titles. So I thought, well, why don't I just hire, some refuse payment, but get a musician to make a sound that sounds usually a acoustic version of what would sound in the book. And Now I'm Here was full of
Nice.
Queen music, so
Uh,
and I just wanted to show it because it does visualize a lot of what the book's about,
yeah,
particularly hot chorus boys in productions of Gypsy, and cinema.
that was one of my favorite parts, the hot chorus voice and the,
Never can
and
take my
that
eyes
clip.
off the chorus boys. Whether it's Marilyn Monroe singing, I always look at George Shakiris. In Debbie Reynolds, I was just watching Anchors Away and Singing in the Rain. I just can't keep my eyes off of Gene Kelly's butt.
Yeah, I mean, what a butt. I mean, talking about musicals, I remember being like a little boy in Mexico and they showed The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which is a musical. And in Mexico, we have a lot lesser like censorship laws. So that entire like football team getting ready to go to the whorehouse shower scene was shown full blast in Mexico. And I remember my 5-year-old little heart exploding. I was just like, one, I'm gay now. Two, I love musicals. And three, this Dolly Parton chick is my goddess, and I want to go to a locker room. I was just like, take me to America, mother. I am going into those locker rooms.
If only they all could sing and dance like that. Yes,
I
I
know,
saw it.
right?
I saw it when I was working at a summer theater in somewhere in Ohio. A bunch of us went and got drunk or stoned or both, and we one of the girls memorized the whole routine. So we were playing around in the theater when it was empty and trying to recreate it. It's really difficult to dance in boots and underpants. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep. Well, I am so happy that we finally got to do something like this. I feel like we've known each other for a long time, and we haven't like done something like this. We've done readings together, definitely,
Yeah.
but I haven't gotten to interview you. So I have a bunch of questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
Unless you'd like to say something else first before we start.
Oh, just support the bookstore. We'll say that repeatedly. Come in and buy the books. I'll sign copies.
Hmm.
And if you have a personalized copy you want mailed or picked up to be picked up, let me know now, and I'll sign it. Some of my friends here I already see helped my Indiegogo campaign. So Thomas Lowe points to Thomas, and Sparkle Jim points to Jim. It really helped pay a few bills. So yay for that. Thank you. And yeah, we can talk more about the book, which we'll answer.
That is amazing. One thing that gives me hope nowadays is just reminding how much like the queer community, especially the queer arts community, like help each other. Most of like everything I've ever done, I've never done it without help from friends, like and kindness from friends and often strangers. So to those of you that are out there supporting a gay writer, all my love to you, especially in the Patreon. So yeah, give more money to Jim. Whenever I do stuff like this, I always like to start out with a question that I love to ask because I am a very like greedy bitch. I'm a greedy bitch for knowledge. I'm horny for facts. So Jim, how do you write? Where do you write? And how the fuck do you do it? Because a lot of us are suffering through writer's block. So are you a morning writer person? Are you a night owl writer? When do you get the shit done?
The morning I wake up and I write down my dreams as soon as I
Mm.
can. If it's like 6 o'clock in the morning and the computer's not on, I voice to text it into my phone to remember it. They're always terrible and boring and stupid, but a few times they led to my fourth and fifth novels. So that's where there are dreams in the fifth one. The whole first 3 chapters of Every Time I Think of You was a dream, and I wasn't in it. I was a character in it. So
Wow.
I try not to forget my dreams. They may come to something later. Then I go to work, or I go online to go to work now. I pop into the office a little bit and absorb the day, and then take a long walk and forget the day. And then if I'm inspired, I then try to write at least an hour. I haven't been writing fiction now because I'm obsessed with doing things with this book and Instagram,
Mhm.
and you have to promote. And edit last minute edits and editing listings and fishing for reviews, and so all that is really getting in the way of actually writing. But once this calms down, or we are left in a completely fascistic state by the end of the year, we'll all have a different focus.
Yeah.
Who knows? So this has been a difficult. I mean, I'm gay, I'm employed, I'm white, I'm privileged, but it's been a difficult year for everybody. But
Yeah.
I still treasure all the things I have that were able to help me continue to do this. Back in January, I had already done 40 queries in 2019 with agents and publishers, knowing they were not going to want this, because this is a bit
Mm.
much for certain people. And it is. It's excessive. It's big. It's epic. It's sexual. But I did it just to do it, just to say I did check the boxes. I polished my pitch, my
Mhm.
log line, and all that other doodah. And then I just met a friend who's a small press publisher, Mark Henry, who I think is on here. I think you're here, Mark.
Mm.
Hi, if you are. And he said, I'll read it. And he read it and then said, okay, let's do this. And again, it's a small press. I'm not getting in advance. I'm doing some of the paying for the ads and the Lambda Literary submissions and those things and the others. But I get more attention specific to my work. And he was a terrific editor and a layout guy, the same as Louis Fleschner with Now I'm Here. He edited it into becoming the best novel it could be over the course of like half a year. And you don't get that with a big publisher. You just have to be done, and then they do legal, and then they do diacriticals, and then it's out. It has to be polished perfect before it even gets there. So having
Wow.
that indulgence to be able to develop it and grow it and discuss the cover and the look and the log lines and all that stuff is a very organic process that I like a lot, and it worked this time as well, it seems.
That's really, really great. And that's really awesome that you were able to have that relationship with putting your book together. I know so many horror stories of writers who like just sent off their book, had no say of what it was going to look like, and then ended up with a box of books that they really didn't like the way it looked or the cover. Like one of my friends, I was like, "Why aren't you pushing your book more?" And they were like, "You know what? It's in a box under my bed, and I kind of cry every time I look at it." And I just was like, "Oh God, that sounds horrible." Which is why with my like little books, I was like really aggressive about what they were gonna look like. What was the moment? My next question, if that's okay. What was the moment you got the first idea for this particular book? Please describe to us, how did you decide from that moment to turn it into an actual book?
Um, the first part was some little short story idea about my musical theater experiences one summer in 1976 that included me playing a boy Tulsa and having a crush on the college age Tulsa. That came about like 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was writing like four novels at once. I was underemployed and not in between after my first bout with years with the BAR, and then before the .com or becoming the syndicated sports columnist, I was just jumping around doing things, and the novels were churning in my head going, oh, this goes over there in that book. Oh, and then I decided with the musical theater thing to pair it up with another short story I had started about a film director in Los Angeles that was completely made up. So
Mm.
they then came together, and I thought, why don't I put these together? And then it just kept unspooling. This has been, quote, done, meaning it's 100,000 words, for the last 10 years. I would just look at it every year and go,
Wow.
I think I'm going to work this novel. So then this one came out. And then it was like, well, no, let's get back to Finding Tulsa. And then it was like, no, I think I'm going to finish this novel. And that one got done. So it's like I have like a lot of pots boiling, and then I just shift them around according to my mood.
That's incredible. Like that, to have that many pots. Some of us wish we just had one pot, but it's really great. Do you have other pots going on right now that you're gonna like eventually get to?
Yeah, I do. I have another. I have a memoir that's half baked and two novels, and I have an uncle, not the one that's fictionally referenced in Finding Tulsa. Another uncle who died 60 years ago with a hand typed,
Mm.
unpublished novel that I found in my parents' attic.
Wow.
It's like 60 years in. It's like Bronx noir-y, maison scene, last exits to Brooklyn. It's very, very strange and not gay at all.
Wow.
And I own it because I printed out a paperback version for my mom to read before she died
Wow.
and before Alzheimer's took her memory. She actually knew that her deceased brother had written this book. So she got to read it, and we proofed it and had to scan the original 60-year-old onion skin pages. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. But again, who's going to buy this book by someone who's been dead 60 years that nobody knows? I don't know.
Hey, weirder things have happened. And also, what an incredible find. Is that like your literary, I guess someone would call it ancestor, or like, is that where you got your writing things
Yeah.
from?
The Italian part of my family loves to say that they're great storytellers, but the Irish ones are, and my uncle obviously wanted to be that. So I hope to, give his legacy, proof it. I only made a few edits and things and retitled it, and we'll see. I mean, I'm proud to publish that. I would just do it myself, but I think it could do better if someone else helped out.
Well, once you get the story out, maybe that'll help with that development. Once you start like showing or telling folks about, his book, you never know. I think that's so incredible. He wasn't queer though, right? I think you said he was straight.
No, but he went in and out of reform school a lot, enough in the 50s that he probably had some experience.
Maybe he was situationally gay, which a lot of young men do, and, you just got to keep telling them, no, it doesn't make you gay. It doesn't make you gay at all. Let's make out.
Well, 50s New York Bronx Reform School. That's like a setting right there.
I just love that you were a theater kid. I have a very big place in my heart for theater kids. One of my friends just sent me the most ridiculous picture of me and some other kids all dressed up to do Steam Heat from Pajama Game. And it just looks ridiculous. And I look like the biggest homo in the world. But you know what? God bless the theater kids, because we grew up to be really interesting and sad adults. And fun. We grew up to be very, very fun.
Very fun.
What was your favorite part about writing this book?
Well, let me step back. I was in a high school production of Pajama Game, and I wanted to be in the Steam Heat number, but I couldn't because I had the character role of the jolly older guy.
Oh my gosh!
They always gave me character roles, so I was wearing bald wigs and stuff, and I was so jealous of Terry, who got to be in the Fosse number. They did the whole thing with the hat and the knee pads, and I was so jealous that I learned it myself as an understudy. I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, that means that you were a good actor. I mean, I think that is really great. Some of us got put in dancing roles because we couldn't act worth a shit back then. So they were like, well, you're tall and you can dance. Go do Steam Heat, because this is for actors over here. And I was like, whatever. I get to hang out with like pretty actors. Why not?
It was fun growing up. I started doing theater with a lot of other kids in our hometown of Ashland, Ohio, because the theater department had children roles for various things like Pool's Paradise and Gypsy. And that was the big one where there were like 15 other kids, but they all had to wait in the green room for the rest of the show for the curtains. So there were babysitters, there were parents. It was this whole cacophony of kids, but I had already been doing shows, so I would climb up into the catwalk and watch it, or I would go up into the light booth and hang out with the lighting guy, because I didn't have to be back on stage until curtain call. So those kind of things, like if there wasn't a kid's part, my brother and I would just show up anyway, and so did my parents. They were in productions of The Fantastics, and my sister was doing ballet, and so it was very liberal in what you would think was a very conservative town in the middle of Ohio. I had a free liberal arts extracurricular education from the time I was 12 till 17. And high school was full of that too, but the college theater was so much more different. And this is what shapes Finding Tulsa, is that there was guys who were just 4 or 5 years older than me were completely unreachable. I mean, they were reachable, but I think one or two of them could totally tell that I had crushes on them, because I just followed them around everywhere they went. And that's what
I'm sure they could.
That's what wove into this story of Finding Tulsa, where the gay film director, 20 years later, he's casting a TV show with that needs a gay uncle, and he, instead of using the usual corporate, these are the approved people who've done coffee commercials, he decides on an open call. And this is something I actually did, jumping ahead to what was real and what isn't. I was casting a multi-character kind of Studs Terkel's working kind of musical that's set in the World Trade Center, a musical in the World Trade Center's PATH station. And I wanted 10 people, so I did an open call in show business or whatever, the weekly was. And I got 2 huge mail bags full of headshots. So I
Wow.
spent a whole day separating men and women, older, younger, cute, kids. It was open call, and I found 10 people who had no experience and were really good. So I used
Wow.
that experience to fictionalize it where Stan Grozniak, the filmmaker, he's going through these headshots and who does he find? But Lance, his Tulsa from that little summer theater production. And he, of course, casts him in the movie, and there's an awkward re-entry, renegotiation of hellos and things, and hilarity and romance ensues.
That's wonderful. That is. Oh, theater memories. Was that one of your favorite parts about writing this book? Like, what was your favorite part about writing the book?
The
About
making
when you were
stuff
writing
up, making stuff up. I mean,
Mm.
you get your pieces of reality, and then you have to quilt sew them into your made up story so the story moves. With most of my books, I try to find an underlying mythology. Like with Pins, it was Saint Sebastian. With Cyclizen, the bike messenger novel, it was the decline of the centaurs. So once you find a
Mm.
classic story that pairs with it, a kind of allegory or it's metaphor, or I don't know what, it carries you through to shape it and have fun with it. For this one, I threw in, along with obviously a lot of musical theater references, um, a few dashes of Homer's Odyssey. So his trip back home is like Homer's trip back home, where he's disguised because he's an out gay man, whereas when he was there, he wasn't.
Hmm.
The ogre, the Cyclops of the Odyssey is the camera, the cinema, and the whole porn shoot at the end of it is referencing the whole chapter where the men land on the island and all get turned into pigs. So so I do little things like that where it's like I'm just having fun. If you get it, I'm not trying to be artsy or pretentious, but if you get it, you'll understand where we're going. It's more fun.
Mhm. That sounds very fun. A beach full of dirty, nasty pigs. That sounds like everybody in San Francisco is gonna love that.
Well, that's where it gets. I wanted to be overboard. I wanted to go. Wait, you
Mhm.
should be wrapping it up in a bow and happily ever after. No, first he's going to go and do this porn shoot in the desert to prove that he can do this
Mhm.
and get it out of his system. Which one of the porn actors says, "Oh, you mean like binge drinking instead of going to AA?" But it's something that I sort of happened. I had visited porn sets. I had met porn people. I did go on this Hijira with a bunch of them, and I just fictionalized everything and made it into that, further the story. But it was fun and wild, and I wanted this book to go further than a lot of the other gay fiction I've written or that I've read recently, where it's very neutered or cautious or tender or singular or cheesy. It's great to
Yeah.
have those kinds of books. I just didn't want to
Mhm.
write one for this.
Well, I noticed right away that because you said you wanted to go further and stuff, and I noticed that when I started reading it right away. It's almost as if I felt as a reader I was already being like thrown in. I was like diving in, and the pace was good from the beginning.
Thanks.
And I mean, I do want to circle back to porn, but later, because
That's
all
for
of
the
that
PM
stuff. I mean,
version. Yes.
wait, what?
That's for the late edition after our G-rated chat. Yes.
Late edition at Dog-Eared Books. Beside the porn, I personally, I'm not going to give too much away. I'm not going to spoil anything. But one of my favorite parts was when you started writing about the brothers discovering theater and discovering their love of theater. And just like, I feel like you really captured that, like, when the bug is slowly biting you, and then you're just like, oh, the theater bug is biting me. And not only was it biting the main character, it was also biting his brother. And the part where I'm not going to say where, but they write their names somewhere, that was so lovely to me. And I think anybody that reads this is going to remember all of that fun, like, superstition about beginning to love theater. And I don't know where, I don't know if I could be wrong, but I feel like almost every theater had some sort of tradition where you would write your name somewhere or behind a flat or behind like the theater I worked at for like too many years. We had a dressing room that was just all wood, and somewhere in the 80s, I think, actors just started signing the walls and the ceiling and just everything. They started signing goodbye. It was almost like a giant yearbook at the end of a show. And so it was lovely to be in that green room as a young actor, as a young theater worker, to see all those freaking names. And then later myself, when I was in a show there, I got to write my name. But yeah, I just thought that was such a lovely part of your book. Did you have any challenges for when you were writing this book? Did you have any like obstacles or things that were just getting in your way at all?
I think, as I said before, I put it aside for many
Mhm.
years because it's large and it's unwieldy, and I had smaller books that I thought should be published before this one. So
Right.
this is like my epic. It's not going to get bigger than this. So it's kind of like I had to, now we're getting back to porn. I had to lube up for this big
Big.
one.
You had to get yourself a little ready.
Well, also, I felt like I had to accumulate enough of a reputation to overindulge, and this is an indulgent, very like, okay, we're moving back to the '70s now. Can you keep up? Okay, now we're in a bar, and I'm going to talk
Now we're
about
on a plane.
yeah, and it's the simultaneity is cinematic, and then here's 20 pages of a journal while making a TV movie.
Hmm.
Who's going to let me do that if I had one editor, Jerry Wheeler, who was terrific, and there were a few parts he said, you're showing off, you're flexing here, where I
Hmm.
was just being like showing off, how look at me, aren't I being clever? And I took out most of it, but I put one back in, so just because I thought it was clever. So usually what's happening now is what I'm getting and reading, and when we get review copies, is there's a pressure to have such a captivating first chapter, like a car crash or the last scene
Hmm.
before the knife is raised in the murder, and then we go back and then it's all bucolic and here's the farm. So that whole
Yeah.
pacing bores the out of me. I don't want to do that, but I did that in this one in a way, because it's like, here we are in the present
Yeah.
1999, and now we're going to go back to the 90s and the 70s, but he's doing it as a memoir and kind of self-deprecatory at the same time. He knows he's a
Mhm.
has-been almost, and is
Hmm.
not making big bones about himself. But I thought, what about somebody who fell through the cracks? This is really the thing. What about someone who was like almost Todd Haynes? He almost
Right.
got to that queer cinema Gregoraki, but he never just quite got in. And
Right.
that's the kind of person that I was thinking of to be this main character, Stan Grozniak.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really great. Let's see. What are some other of my questions? Here's a question that I was wondering about. Like, why a novel about a film director, even though you are not a film director?
I am not a film director. No, I am not. I have seen many, many films. Um, I did music videos in the 80s with my brother and his soon to be wife in New York. We did music videos for Rick James, who was stoned
What?
off his ass. He smoked
What?
joints in his dressing room, and he played this 10-foot fake guitar, and I was on the smoke machine. And then
Wow.
Apollonia, she was really great. And then we did songs for the soundtrack to Oh Baby in the Corner, Dirty Dancing, and I got to meet Mary, what's her name, who did the screaming vocal section of "Give Me Shelter." She was one of the singers on Mary Winter. I forget. Anyway, Mark Abramson is on, and he would know her. So I got to meet all these celebrities, and at the same time hauling equipment in New York in a van and renting the van. And then in here I got to make my own movies later on for my trailers and stuff. And my brother and I collected movies and made movies. That's the real thing that he would let me admit to. We made little Super 8 movies with claymation and dressing up our little cousin as a monster and all that stuff. And then we started buying and trading bootleg copies of the Phantom of the Opera and showing them to kids in the basement with Kraftwerk on the stereo. And the best combination is actually Kraftwerk and Metropolis, which features very prominently in this novel. But
Hmm.
Led Zeppelin works really well for Phantom of the Opera, Reel 3. So we were like mixing soundtracks before there was a Metropolis with a soundtrack, because we never heard it. You couldn't go to a theater and see it unless you went all the way to Cleveland or New York. So we were like little cinema guys. So I do have experience in that regard.
That sounds really awesome. I mean, one of my random questions is like, who was like the hottest celebrity that you got to meet, and were they like hot in real life?
Oh, that's all changed since I've been doing interviews for the past several decades. I've been so lucky that when I was freelancing and with the Bay Area Reporter to just, oh, Cheetah Rivera is coming to town. I'm gonna call her up.
Oh my
And
God. Wow.
I know. It's like the first time I interviewed her for Frontiers, I actually was still in New York, and she had me meet her at her husband's restaurant in Midtown. So I got to have free lunch for 2 hours, chat with Chita Rivera. The tape recorder is somewhere, the tape is somewhere on a micro cassette. But then I interviewed her again. I go, hey, I'm the kid, remember, who bragged that I got to see you in West Side Story when my mom was pregnant with me. And she remembered that, it's because she does all these interviews. And then the third time I got to interview her, we was like, okay, let's just talk about your show. Because there were so many Kiss of the Spider-Woman questions I wanted to ask. And I could have talked to her about West Side Story forever. So now I watch her on Stars in the House, Seth Rudetsky's show that he does with his husband, James Wesley. And she's adorable. But the most physically handsome male person I ever interviewed and the nicest guy was Kyle Dean Massey, who was on, Nashville. He was on Nashville,
Nashville.
TV show, and he's also done Broadway. He was at Fiyero in Wicked like 5 times. So I had to work with him on it to make sure that I got which times he was on Broadway and on tour. And he was so nice, and he's so hot. I follow him on Instagram, and he and his boyfriend are so gorgeous because I love chorus boys. I love chorus guys because I wanted to be one, and then I realized modern dance was better, and then I realized that wasn't. So I got back into words. So I never got to be the chorus boy I wanted to be, but loving one and finding one, Nate, who played Tulsa, is the closest I'm getting is with this book.
If only writers had chorus boys.
We can do it. We can do it.
I mean, I think that's one of the only reasons I still perform, because I'm like, is there a budget? Can I have go-go boys? And just put that into my contract. Let's see. Oh, I have a question. I feel like I'm asking everyone I know right now this question because I want to know. Yeah. What is keeping you sane during all of this lovely quarantine, pandemic, COVID, corona bullshit?
Complete and utter delusion. I dive in, like today I dove in to all the horrible things that we all know they're there, and I'm not going to name them. And then I pulled out, and then I wrote a little proposal. I want to do an event like this with Felice Bacano because we both have Hollywood movies. I totally invest, and people who know me and follow me know I'm not repeating news stuff that everyone else is repeating because I don't want to see his face. You don't want to see his face or Turtle's face or any of their faces. So I'm not foisting that out into the world because we're all doing quite well. What I'm doing is enjoying my work at the BAR where I get to promote other people. This week we have Bob Mould and my old friend Catherine Gunn from the Act Up days, who is a co-founder of Diva TV. She has a documentary about her mother, who's this brilliant philanthropist who sold off a famous painting and gave millions of dollars from the profits to prison reform. And so that's the kind of thing. It's like, oh, of course, Catherine Gunn, of course, Bob Mould. So I get to assign other people and hire writers to share their stories. And that's where I feel like I'm giving back and keeping the evil and the nasty at bay.
That sounds so much better than what I do. Just watch Netflix in my underwear and cry all the time. I mean, that's just
that's
what I do. But I guess some people are helping the world with philanthropy. But back to you, Jim. Like, I always ask my fellow writers this because I feel like whenever we see each other at events, I'm like, hey, love you, did the reading, bye. What do you, like, okay, so, one, what do you wear when you're writing? Do you have like a special pajama pants, a special
boxer shorts, and my favorite T-shirts from my summer in Italy?
Okay, that's hot. Thank you for that visual.
No socks.
What?
No socks.
Nice. For all of us at home, put that image in your head. Do you snack on anything while you write? Like, is there something that has to be next to your laptop?
When I'm writing, no. When I'm looking at it or I'm reading it back, I snack on cashews, cheesy popcorn. I love to redo frozen pizzas.
And you add shit to the frozen pizzas from your fridge?
Put other things on the frozen pizza.
Fucking love doing that.
Yeah. I just ate some leftover for dinner 2 hours ago. So
drizzle some of that balsamic glaze on that shit, some prosciutto.
Leftover bologna, whatever works.
Yeah. What is something you do when you have like finished something? Like, is there a special whiskey you sip when you finish a whole novel? Or like, do you go watch your favorite porn? Like, what do you do when you've accomplished something literary, like a treat yourself for Jim?
Treat yourself. I do treat myself. This year, well, when I did, not to throw back, but when I did Now I'm Here, I would treat myself after a good writing session to a Queen concert. It was homework, and I was also in my full headspace with Queen. So I would just watch the whole concert in Barcelona, and
Wow.
cry and laugh and eat
Mm.
potato chips. But for this one, for Finding Tulsa, I'm binging on musicals. I'm going back to like
Fitting.
old Gene Kelly musicals. I just watched Anchors Away the other night because I finished a massive like email listing or something. I don't know. I treat one good movie a night is what I had now
Yeah.
have time for. Yeah.
That's wow. That's how you treat yourself. That's amazing. I usually just eat a whole bowl of mashed potatoes and cry into the night.
While
Um,
you're watching the movie, yes.
yes, one of my favorite of all time old musicals. I mean, just amongst us girls. And everybody hates this musical. They love to shit on it. I understand why, but I love Carousel. Do you like Carousel?
I accept it. It's not my favorite.
See, I know half the world hates it and half the world loves it. That
You
is
know what
so
I love
interesting.
about it is the Doris Humphreys dance sequence where
Mm.
some things actually happen. This harkens back to my musical theater experience blending with my dance studies at Ohio State. I was always a storyteller, even though we were mostly being taught Cunningham and Graham abstract. But they could tell, all my instructors were like, "You're telling a story." And I'm like,
Ah,
"Yes." But Doris Humphreys was always my favorite because her famous quote was, "If you can't make a point in a dance in 4 minutes, you can't do it at all." And
wow.
the dance substitution sequence in Carousel is my favorite because the film version and an okay production in regional theater I saw, the dancing furthers the plot and you end up somewhere else at the end, which I thought
Right.
was radical. Same with West Side Story, which I could watch a
Yeah.
thousand times.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the music is trash on it. Like this was a real nice clam bake. Get the fuck rid of that. I mean, that's the thing with some of these old musicals. They haven't aged well. But one of the reasons I really love Carousel is because it's about a terrible person that tries really hard to change. That's one of my. Every time I watch it, I cry. Every time he starts singing "If I Loved You," I'm
Oh,
like, not
don't
again, not
get on alone.
Okay, let's see. Another question that I love to ask every writer and artist I interview. What fuels you? Like what drives your passion? A lot of people say their mother, a lot of us immigrants are like pissing off white Americans. Like, what is something that drives your passion? Like what makes Jim's creative engine run?
Gosh, I wish I knew.
Hmm.
I think part of it is just having a story that won't go away. I mean, even the last one I published, I'm still rewriting it in my head, going, "Oh, I could have done that kitchen scene like this." But if it's done, I mean, I sat on Now I'm Here for again 20 years. I had to grow older to really mature and to look back and formulate the maturity of the narrator who is telling their story. And you can't. I couldn't do that 20 years ago because it's even with Finding Tulsa. I wrote it mostly in the mid 1990s when the book is actually set. So
Hmm.
I was writing down things at the time that were trending in the media and in Los Angeles, but I needed perspective to go, oh yeah, let's look at it from this side. So a lot of my books have that distance to it that you just have to sit on it and write something else, a short story. I cranked out a short story, about
Hmm.
the pandemic, Chorus Boys, and OnlyFans, which hopefully will get published next month. So we can talk. Yeah.
Oh, only fans. Talk about things that have helped us through this terrifying pandemic. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about how much I loved there's a certain part of the book that talks about their either basement or their like lower level place where him and his brother hang out. I feel like so many people were lucky enough to have that. I didn't have that, but I had parents that went to bed very early,
Oh.
and they were like out like lights, and so I would and so the when the character talks about all of the crazy movie nights and then the later self exploration he had on his own, it just makes me think of all those lovely times that I would rent, like Bram Stoker's Dracula at age 9, and my parents were just like, well, we're going to bed. And I would be like, cool, I don't have a VHS from Blockbuster of Bram Stoker's Dracula hidden in my backpack. I'm not going to watch it the entire night and jerk off to Keanu Reeves. But I thought that was such a lovely part of the book. And then it also reminded me of just all the naughtiness like you can get into like as a youth exploring, their body. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a part that I thought was hilarious because I did something similar to that as a young gay boy, except it was with a small shampoo bottle just amongst us girls. Because like, you're 13, you're like, oh, I'm probably gay. I'm in this bathtub. Here's a tiny shampoo bottle with a very round and soft end that kind of it was like 5 inches. It was like thick but slim. And so my 13-year-old body got very creative that night. And that's just one of my favorite parts of your book.
Which doesn't no lotions or shampoo bottles were harmed in the making of that series. Yeah, no. It's produce. Let's just hint that produce. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was that fun writing about? I like the way you.
So embarrassing.
It's not like you. I feel a lot of writers shy away from sex, and they're like, and then the sun came up, and their teeth were ruffled.
Yeah.
Or some writers are like, her clit tasted like this, and you're just like, whoa, okay, which is like hot, but I like both. I like the super graphic, sweaty, hot ones. But I feel like you did kind of in the middle with this book. I love that you didn't shy away from the sex, but you also weren't like super explicit. You were like, and by the way, gay people have sex, and boom, boom, boom. Here is the one description that's going to make it extra sexy for you, like with the two sandwich bros, who I thought were so hot. I was like, more sandwich bros. I want to know more about these brothers and the sandwiches they make and how their fingers touch the flesh before they put it on the bread. Because that was a great part for me. But how did you approach like sex scenes like that? Was that a decision you made?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and say Doris Humphreys inspired my sex scenes. Because if nothing happens, why are you writing it? I've written porn under other names, as many of us have. In fact, Barry, one of the characters, gets a joke at his expense because he also fictionally did that. And that's goal-oriented. That's like what the discussion with Jason Daw, the porn actor that Stan Grozniak meets, they critique plumbing shots. That's not what it's not about. The sex in Finding Tulsa is, and then something else happened. We had sex and then that led to this, or they have conversations before, during, and after, or it doesn't actually complete itself because one of them is falling away. So everything was like a musical number where something happens. It has to make sense, and it has to change the characters a little bit, or it's just for fun and it's reference. I mean, there's a few things like that. This character is much more sexual than I am now, or even was then. Perhaps. But he's really aware of himself. And I think a lot of us of a certain age in the 90s, we knew AIDS was right there. We knew it was right there, and we knew how to follow the rules. And some of us did and some of us didn't. But we were still sexual. And to deny that is wrong. Not wrong, but it's just not my choice in my fiction. When I fell into romance with the romance category with more props, these boys, I didn't put a hot shirtless guy on the cover. I didn't put a token wheelchair on the cover. And that may have lost me sales, but it got me the damn award, so I got the stickers. So fuck that. Yeah. But I didn't want to fall into that cutesy, all the romance cliches I found later when I started reading books in that category, the MM category, which is not high literature, and that's fine. We accept it. But there's only one sex scene, and it's usually on page 162 or 112. And it's all lead up to that, as if one sex scene is going to lead to romance, and then the almost break up and then back together again. It's very traditional, like an operetta. You know what's going to happen, and I didn't do that in these two books. I broke all the rules. I was like, no, we're not doing that. So I'm aware of the structures of theater and book writing, but I'm trying to fit them like a mask, like a theatrical guise, and then break it and push it around.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a big porn shoot at the end.
I think that's
it's very theatrical. It's Aristotelian.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, if you don't mind, I kind of want to hear more about that, Jim Provenzano. I think you said you have a background in porn, or you've directed porn, or met some porn stars, or
I've met a bunch of them when I was working for Outweek magazine in New York. We had a couple of guys like the lovely Jake Corbin, whom I dedicated one of my novels to. and he took me to the Gaiety Theater where I had been before. It was before Madonna ruined it. And he took me backstage because I had been body painting Jake Corbin. He asked me to body paint him
What?
for his strip act. So
Wow.
and we were on Fire Island, and he had red, white, and blue glitter for Fourth of July, and the beloved Robin Bird, Bang Your Box of the cable show where you could see naked guys at night. She would have the guys from the Gaiety on the show, and they would shake their bonbons and say, "I'm performing at Show World on Friday and Saturday." And I knew a lot of these guys because they would come to ACT UP benefits, or they would go dance at clubs where we were having a benefit at Mars, at the Pyramid. So and Jake was the best one because he was so sweet with this accent from Rhode Island. He had this Rhode Island accent that I can't do it. That's Jersey. He was a precious guy, but he was also trying to make a living as a sex worker.
Mhm.
So he took me to the Gaiety, and I got to see how the guys prepare for their second scene, which, you have like 5-10 minutes to present yourself erect. And I always wondered how they did that. And I got to see it. So no, I'm not going to tell it. Yeah, that'll be another story.
Oh, Jim.
But unfortunately, Jake got sick, and he got kicked out when he was really sick with AIDS. He got kicked out of his apartment by a roommate and came to my door, and he stayed with me the last 3 months. He was in New York before he went home to Rhode Island. His parents, he finally, I gave him some money to take the train home. He left me with a bunch of his stuff, and he died like half a year later in Rhode Island. And so that's the thing I'm dealing with Rick Dacker, the character in Finding Tulsa. Is he's accumulation of all our hot, sexy, daring, adventurous friends who burned bright and died in the late 80s or 90s. He's like 17 different guys put together that I either knew or admired or barely met. There were a few Hollywood actors that I actually met on trips to LA in 1990, 1992 that informed a lot of this novel. And Tom Villard was one of the actors who I met who abruptly died thereafter. And he was this really sweet guy. We didn't date, we just were friends. And but his swimming pool is one of the swimming pools in that book, because just that night we were together with other guys. It showed me a moment in LA life that wasn't horrible. It wasn't cliche. It wasn't vapid. There were like 5 or 10 gay guys at the pool at night, and we were just talking and really relating. And a lot of that LA-ness from people from Tim Miller to Marcus Nazario, and a host of other people who I got to see LA through different eyes, through residents' eyes, and how cool it was at that time. And that's a lot where I took notes, and some of the stuff for the book came from.
Yeah, that's amazing. So many younger queers aren't going to know what that was like, and I think it's like really, really great that so many writers are still writing about that stuff and about that era, and what a trip it is to just have so many of your friends like disappear throughout these the decades that was happening. I only experienced a little bit of that. The queer members of my family that I knew of didn't make it, but they didn't make it before I was born, so I didn't even get to meet those uncles, and they became this like legend / ghost throughout my childhood. And then when I discovered I was queer, it was almost as if they were haunting me. Like I went to Vista College or Laney College, I forgot, one of those, to like sign up for something. And I was like, oh, my last name is Porras, Porras. And the woman was like, Ignacio? And I was like, what? No, that's my uncle's name. She was like, oh, okay, well, what's your name? And I was like, wait. Like, did my uncle go here? And then I found out that he had, one of the reasons my family moved to the Bay Area is because my dad had a gay uncle here who was out, left, came here, had a life, had a partner, lived in Oakland. And so we were supposed to come stay with him. And that was going to be a big help. Like when you're an immigrant family and you come to a new place, like to have already a family here is like, it changes your experience 100%. Yeah. And then like right before we were supposed to come, he passed. So, and he was HIV positive. And so when we came here by ourselves. We decided to still come to the Bay Area, even though we didn't have any connections here. And so that has just been something that has always been above my immigrant story. Like, how would that have been had I had that uncle with his connections and his queer connections and queer family? And and guidance later when I came out. So that is, my experience with that. But a lot of the queers even younger with me aren't really going to know what that's like. I mean, unless this pandemic gets even worse. So, maybe in the future, some of those novels will talk about that. They'll be like when all of my grandparents suddenly disappeared, or
Yeah.
when all of my, when suddenly everybody I knew that was older suddenly disappeared. And I think it's really great that writers write our stories down like that. It's really, really important for us to write these stories down. Well, that is the end of my questions. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we ended, or before I start asking you the naughty questions that I have in my head?
We could see if somebody else who's on. Hi, Keith.
Right. Q&A. Let's do a Q&A.
Gar McVeigh.
Does anybody in the that's joining us tonight via Zoom have any questions for the author? Turn your cameras on and raise your hand so I can see you if you have a question, or use the hand raise app. Oh, here we go. Let's say hi to Carl Crossgrove. Do you have a question for Jim?
No, it wasn't a question, but it was a comment, and I put it in the chat, which I'm used to because I use Zoom for work, but maybe we're not doing that.
Oh, I wasn't seeing the chat. Sorry, go ahead. Say your comment.
The pumpkins reference?
But you were talking about, Jim, you and I have talked about this a little bit. You have a project and it sort of has to simmer for a long time. And you were talking about this book and other books that have had to really gestate or wait around. And I said, they're like growing pumpkins. You plant them, it feels like springtime, all these things happen, all this life has to progress, and you look at them and you're like, get bigger, but you can't make a pumpkin grow faster. You know, you can't make a project mature until you've got all the pieces, all the ideas, all the material.
No, particularly for Now I'm Here, which is literally set half on a pumpkin farm, which I actually did, as you know, and everyone else within earshot. I love to brag about that. I worked on a pumpkin farm, but that agricultural aspect of growing a book, I think, is something that often works. With every time I think of you, that took 9 months. That was like a baby. That was like, boom, you're done. Because I wanted to finish it in time for the Lambda Literary Award deadline. So I had 9 months, and I was like, okay, hurry up. Whereas other times I really have given that space, because I feel an urgency now. I think a lot of other people do with this new pandemic, an urgency to get stuff done before the entire country is a fascistic state run by oligarchs. So hurry up, TikTok. But not on TikTok, because that's soon to be gone. Yeah.
Not on TikTok. Does anyone else in the Zoom audience have a question or a comment for our author of the evening?
Gar?
Oh, I do have a just sort of procedural. Do you have an online way for me to buy from Dog-Eared Books, or what do you recommend?
Dog-earedbookscastro.com, and then just look up my last name, and on all my books, most of my books will show up.
It's in the chat.
Oh, the link is in the chat. Thank you, Wonder Dave.
So nice to have good tech support.
It is.
Look how handy that chat is.
Baby, all that chat. No, I think the one thing that I really wanted to do this here, and I thank you so much, Dave and Alvin and Baruch, for doing this, because I was like, we're going to plow through. Thousands of people are doing this now. We should do it, because I wanted to do it in the store to remind people to come to the store. You had about a dozen shoppers just before we were getting ready. People are doing this. You can do this. You may not want to go to a bar. You may not want to eat in a restaurant. You may want your food to go. But you can wipe your hands and buy some actual books. And I did it last time, and I'm looking at 3 or 4 that I'm hopefully, if the cash register is still open. Because an actual book, I don't care how many I have piled up in my apartment. You can all collect them when I'm dead. An actual book goes into your brain so much more differently than a Kindle. Even though I get 10 times more Kindle sales than print books, I'm aware of that. I've expanded to other ebook formats so that I'm not dependent on the evil A, which I won't say in this store. It's like saying the Scottish play in a theater. There, how's that for Italian? That I don't want to depend on them, but we have to depend on them to have a presence. I had an early book reviewer request come back to me, and she said, it's not even on Amazon yet. I was like, it's 3 months before it's published. Oh, I said the word. Now I got to do the ritual like the Scottish play. So that's the standard, and it's unfortunate because they're filthy rich and they're abusing their workers. So go to bookshop.org. Find your local bookstore.
You know,
how they're doing it.
For a long time.
Go ahead.
For a long time, I've reversed that ugly process where people would come into bookstores and go, "Oh, that looks good," and then go on Amazon and buy it. I did the reverse. God. I go find a thing I want on Amazon. I'm like, "That's the one." Close the browser and go to the local bookstore and get it there.
Right.
That's awesome. Everybody do that instead. Sparkle Jim had a question or a comment. Hi Jim, how are you?
I do have a question, and I will comment on that last comment. I use the Amazon phone list as my "these are the books I want" list.
Sure. So
then I can pull it out in a bookstore, and I've got the 15 books right there. So we can use the tools our own way.
Oh, let's say hi to Gar. How's it going? Welcome.
Hi, Baruch.
Hi, Gar.
Jim, congratulations. I just wanted to say congratulations on getting it done. And I love your little friend.
We have puppets. We promised puppets.
Is that Bunny Rabbit? It looks
no,
like
it's a
Bunny
squirrel.
Rabbit. Oh, it's a squirrel.
Yes.
Okay. That was a reincarnation of Bunny Rabbit. But I look forward to reading it and congratulations.
Thank you. We did a reading at Martuni's 3-4 years ago?
About 2 or 3 years ago, yeah.
For Litquake, which I forgot to sign up for, so I don't have any events at Litquake this year. Oops.
Oh, well.
They're doing all their stuff online, too. They're using, I think, multiple platforms, different ways. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of that. It's in October still, I think.
Jim, you were the first person to ever book me for Litquake, and it was at Martuni's back when I was a little baby writer. And I remember it was like such a big deal for me because like I knew who you were already, and I was already a fan, and I was a huge fan of Martuni's, and,
sure.
and a huge, I mean, you know, which writer doesn't want to get involved with Litquake?
And get a free cocktail.
That was one of the best things ever for me. I think Daphne Gottlieb was in that.
Oh, okay.
And that's back when I drank, so I had like 3 martinis. I had a really great time at your show. Next time. Well, Jim, any last words or comments or announcements or acknowledgments or anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Just thanks to everybody who supported this book so far, and please do and support Dog-Eared Books Castro and other stores where you are located or by mail. And keep things going and stay safe. Put your masks on. Wash your hands.
And Jim, you did say where people can find you, right? You're on all the social medias. Are you on Twitter?
I'm on all of them. I have a rabid following in the dozens.
Nice.
Instagram,
well, folks,
website, jimprovenzano.com. That's my thing.
Nice. If you don't follow him already, follow him on Twitter. Follow Jim Provenzano on Instagram. Follow him everywhere, even on Facebook. And please buy the book, Finding Tulsa, because it's awesome. It's got a nice cover. There's a cute gay boy dancing right there. And it's written by a wonderful, very intelligent, sexy guy. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much to Dog-Eared Books and to our tech moderator, Wonder Dave, for going all the way to the bookstore to make sure this happened. And thank you, Jim, for being so awesome and putting out books like this into the world. Everybody, Thomas, Sparkle Jim, Carl, Keith, Courtney, Michael, other Jim Provenzano, Stephen, Meg Elison, and Paul Horrocks, you all have a really great night. Wear your masks, watch all the porn you want, wash your hands, and great night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Chewing on the book.